If you're a fan of the NBA or any other major sport, you know that there are some records that will never be broken. We've seen plenty of videos that talk about unbreakable NBA records. Records that are honestly absurd, and we can't imagine any player in the modern NBA even come close to it. However, in this video, I want to talk about some current players who, in my opinion, they have the best chance at breaking those unbreakable records. Now, that doesn't mean it's gonna happen. Very unlikely to happen. But hey, let's have some fun and take a look at these theoretical possibilities. How's it going, folks? My name's Andy, and without further ado, let's get started. Wilt Chamberlain's 100 points in a game. What better way to start this off than with arguably the most iconic unbreakable record in NBA history? Of course, this happened in the 1960s when the pace was so much faster, and according to multiple sources, the entire team was basically feeding Wilt the ball intentionally, so he can reach 100 points. We've seen some players in the past who've come close to it, like Kobe's 81 or even Devin Booker's 70, but that's still a long ways off. Either way, I think the current player with the best chance to do this is Klay Thompson. If this was a few years ago, I'd maybe say James Harden because he was basically carrying the Rockets by himself, or maybe Steph Curry too. But I think Klay is most likely to break it because when he's hot, there's nobody in the world stopping him. However, the most crucial aspect of being able to score 100 points is not necessarily how hot you can get. That is important, but endurance and how you score is even more important. Let's take a look at some previous games when Klay went off. On December 5th, 2016, Klay scored 60 points in just 29 minutes. But even more impressive, he did all of that and only dribbled the ball 11 times the entire game. 33 shot attempts with just 11 dribbles. That's freaking insane. In another game on January 23rd, 2015, Klay dropped 37 points in a single quarter. As of this video, that record still stands as the most points scored in a single quarter in NBA history. Don't forget, he also broke the single-game three-point record, hitting 14 threes on October 29th, 2018. Plus, another time he scored 43 points with just 4 dribbles the entire game. Basically, what I'm saying is that not only is Klay a microwave, but he also scores with minimal effort. Because he mainly scores off catch and shoots and barely ever dribbles the ball, he saves a lot more energy than most scorers. For example, LeBron, Durant, Curry, Harden, they usually spend a lot more effort to score. Handling, dribbling, driving to the basket, that's all part of their extensive repertoire. Klay, on the other hand, he can basically go the entire game just scoring off of catch and shoots. Now, what are the chances of Klay actually scoring 100 in a game? Super low, pretty much non-existent. But even if it is a ridiculously low chance, he still has, in my opinion, the best chance to do it. Skiles, 30 assists in a game. The closest that anyone has gotten in recent years was Rajon Rondo in 2017. He recorded 25 assists as a member of the New Orleans Pelicans. But it's safe to say Rondo is out of the picture now, with his current place in the NBA. He won't come close to breaking that record. Out of all current NBA players, it has to be Chris Paul, right? He's also getting older, but his assist numbers have been just as dominant as ever. He just led the league in assists per game again for the 5th time of his NBA career. Plus, with his playstyle, he's been prioritizing his passing more than ever, especially with a team full of young, athletic guys who are more than willing to play off of him. I feel like out of all the records on this list, the 30 assist record is the one most likely to be broken. Other players have come close over the years too, like Westbrook, for example, recorded 24 assists in 2019, just a few years ago. But seeing the direction his career is going, I don't think Westbrook can do it. In the current NBA landscape, Chris Paul probably has the best chance, although his time is running short. Wilt's 55 rebounds. This record is pretty ridiculous. To give you some context, literally all of the top 50 highest rebounding games were recorded back in the 50s and 60s because the pace was so high, but also because teams missed a lot of shots, so there were way more opportunities to grab boards. In the modern NBA, we've seen some players record 30 rebound games a few times. Enes Kanter in 2021, Dwight Howard in 2018, which was a huge surprise actually considering he's out of his prime. However, right now, I'd say the guy with the best chance to crack this record is Nikola Jokic. Now bear with me here. The reason I pick him is because even though other players average more rebounds a game, Jokic is basically the only good rebounder on his own team, so he doesn't have to compete with his teammates for boards. I would have said Rudy Gobert a year ago because, he actually led the league in rebounds, but since he's playing with Towns now, I think his rebounding numbers will drop. Plus, despite Jokic's appearance, he's in fairly good condition. He's proven to be able to play an extensive amount of minutes, like when he logged 65 minutes in a game a few years back, the most by any player since 1953. It needs to be the perfect circumstance for him to break this record. Maybe a game that goes into quadruple overtime and the other Nuggets big men fouled out, so Jokic is the only guy on his team grabbing boards. If that's the case and everything falls into place, I could see it happening. 107 points in a half. Now, this is a record you probably have not heard of. On November 10th, 1990, the Phoenix Suns set an NBA record for most points scored in a single half, with 107. 107 points in a single half? That's just absurd when you think about it. However, there's been a few times when teams have come somewhat close to breaking it. For example, in 2018, the Warriors scored 92 points in a half, but that's still 15 points away. With the direction the NBA is headed towards, more threes, more efficient offenses, I think this record will be broken eventually. You just need a high-paced offensive team to get ridiculously hot for 2 quarters, and you got it. We've seen teams score 50 points in a quarter before, so you just gotta do that for 2 quarters in a row. In the 2021-22 season, the Minnesota Timberwolves actually led the NBA in total points per game, with 115.9. That's followed closely by the Grizzlies and Bucks. But honestly, if I had to pick one team to do it, I'd say the Warriors. In recent years, their offensive efficiency has been dominant and their players can get hotter at a more consistent level. To score 107 in a half, they need everyone on their team to go off, and I feel like that's more likely to happen for the Warriors than any other team in the NBA. They did get the closest in recent years. Total points in a game, 370. On December 13, 1983, the Detroit Pistons defeated the Denver Nuggets 186-184. Even in today's game, this is unfathomable, but it requires a specific set of circumstances for this to happen. For example, if we take a detailed look at this particular game, one thing that stands out is that both teams were equipped with the number 1 and number 2 ranked offenses in the entire league. But they were also near the bottom defensively, with the Pistons being ranked 16th out of 23 teams back then, and the Nuggets were 22nd, almost dead last. Basically, it was a shootout. 2 elite offensive teams were going off on each other, but scoring was a lot easier when both teams sucked at defense. So the best chance of something like this happening again in the current NBA, we must find 2 teams with great offenses but bad defenses. I vote the Atlanta Hawks versus the Charlotte Hornets. In the 2021-22 season, the Hawks had the 2nd best offensive rating, but a putrid 26th best defense. The Hornets had the 9th best offense, but the 23rd best defense. Both these teams have extraordinary firepower, with players who can go off in a heartbeat. But with their lackadaisical defense, it's the perfect formula for this record to be broken. Wilt's 48.5 minutes a game. Safe to say, this is the most impossible record to break. 48.5 minutes a game. I mean, that's literally more than the average game time. Back in the day, it was common for players to play the entire game, plus you include a few overtimes, and that's how Wilt has this record. We've seen some players in the early 2000s like Allen Iverson average around 42 to 43 minutes a game, but since then, minutes across the NBA have dropped significantly. Pascal Siakam's 37.9 minutes per game was the highest in 2022, and even that is considered quite high these days. Most stars play around 35 minutes a game. Basically, I'd say the only way this record could be broken is if Tom Thibodeau was on crack the entire season and decided to play one of his guys every minute of every single game. Perhaps that's not impossible. Bubba Wells fouls out in 2 minutes, 43 seconds. Bubba Wells only played a single season in the NBA, but in that season, he broke an infamous record that still stands today. He recorded 6 fouls in 2 minutes, 43 seconds. It happened because Mavs coach Don Nelson tried to employ a strategy that was unheard of back then. The Hack-a-Shack, or in this case, the Hack-a-Rodman. The Mavs won only 20 games that season as they were one of the league's worst teams, so they needed every advantage they could get. Wells entered the game and his sole purpose was to foul Dennis Rodman. But unfortunately, it didn't work. Rodman hit 9 of his 12 free throws. So fast forward to the modern NBA, and I feel like in order for this record to be broken, a coach must do the same thing. Send in a random bench warmer into the game to commit fouls on purpose. So it could honestly be any irrelevant player we've never heard of who could break this record. But for the spirit of this video, let's assume the player fouls out naturally. I think the player who can record 6 fouls the quickest would be JaVale McGee. He has the right amount of uncoordinated defense, empty-mindedness, and clumsiness that could cause him to foul out very quickly if he isn't paying attention. 1,192 consecutive games played. There's a reason AC Green got the nickname Iron Man. In 15 of his 16 seasons, he appeared in every single game. He only missed 3 games his entire career, and that was his sophomore season. This record is probably as unbreakable as Wilt's 48.5 minutes per game record, considering these days players sit out all the time. At the end of a season when the coaches want to prevent an injury or just sitting out during random parts of the season to take a break. You know, load management and all that jazz. If I had to choose a current player who I think could break this, it has to be Mikal Bridges. As of this video, he's played 4 seasons in the NBA and has not yet missed a single game. If you're wondering, the 73 and 72 games in these 2 years were the maximum regular season games available. So he's played in every game he could play in so far. But can he break AC Green's record? He still has about 800 to 900 games left to go. Anyway, that's all folks. Let me know your thoughts on which players or teams can break these quote unbreakable records. Even if it is nearly impossible, there's still a chance for everything, right? Let me know in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and of course, as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.